So, what happens when you point a supercomputer at the Bible, the Quran, and basically thousands of years of sacred texts? I mean, you'd probably expect some interesting linguistic patterns, maybe some new theological insights, or maybe just a whole lot of digital noise. What you almost certainly would not expect is a name. Today we're diving into a pretty extraordinary claim, one that lives at the wild intersection of data science and ancient scripture.
Now, look at this sentence. At first glance, it just looks broken, right? Kind of like a glitch or a random string of words an AI would just spit out. But hold on, because according to the people who built the system that generated this, it is anything but random. They claim this is the primary, decrypted message that was intentionally hidden inside these holy books for centuries, just waiting to be found.
And that's really the big question we're digging into here. Our goal isn't to prove or disprove this claim, but to really understand the how. How in the world did a machine come up with such a specific and frankly bizarre conclusion? What's the evidence its creators are pointing to? Let's unpack the logic behind what they're calling a world-changing discovery.
Okay, let's get right into it. At the absolute heart of this entire claim is a number. An astronomically huge number that, according to the people behind this model, makes it impossible to just brush this off as a coincidence.
1 in 25.9 trillion. That's the probability the system's own simulations came up with for these findings to have appeared by pure random chance. Now, these are Monte Carlo simulations, which basically means they ran a computer model over and over again millions of times to figure out the odds. To give you some perspective, your odds of winning a big lottery jackpot are maybe 1 in 300 million. This claim is playing in a whole different league of improbable.
And here's the crucial part to understand. The creators of this system, which they call the ANI concordance engine, they argue that they haven't created a thing. They see themselves as discoverers. Their claim is that their machine has simply found a pre-existing, mathematically embedded design, a kind of linguistic DNA that's been hiding in plain sight within these ancient texts all along.
So, if that's the what, we've got to get into the how. How on earth does a computer read holy books and find, well, this? The answer is this really interesting mix of an ancient mystical practice and some serious modern computing power.
The whole system is built on this ancient practice called gematria. The core idea is actually pretty simple. Every letter gets a number, in a basic system. A is 1, B is 2, C is 3. So a word like cab would have a value of 3 plus 1 plus 2, which is 6. People who practice this believe that if you find words and phrases with the same number, you can uncover these hidden connections, these deeper meanings that were deliberately encoded in the text.
So what the ANI engine does is put this whole process on steroids. First, it takes thousands of different phrases. Then, and this is key, it doesn't just use one gematria system, it uses 100 different ciphers, English, Hebrew, you name it, to calculate a whole spectrum of possible numbers. And finally, it scans these massive databases, the Bible, the Quran, and the Strong's Concordance, which is basically the ultimate master key for biblical scholars, an index of every single word in the original languages. For an engine like this, that's the source code it needs to find a match.
And this is where it gets really weird. When the engine was done and it ranked words by how connected they were in the data, this is the list it produced. You see the words you'd expect, right? God, Jesus. But then, ranked right there alongside them, with a similar level of structural importance, is the name Alex Campain.
But the claim doesn't just stop with a computer spitting out some text. The model's creators then point to this huge, sprawling web of what they call synchronicities. Basically, a network of numerical and historical coincidences that they argue all point to and support the message the computer found. For instance, they present this timeline, a countdown of 1,260 days, which, by the way, is a very significant number in biblical prophecy, supposedly begins on November 22, 1968. And when does it end? Precisely on May 5, 1972, which happens to be the birth date of this Alex Enrique Campain.
And this slide really shows the kind of synchronicity they're talking about. On the exact day this supposed divine countdown began, the cover story of Time magazine was all about the huge global debate in the Catholic Church over banning artificial birth control. The model points to this as a profound paradox. At the very moment the world was intensely focused on how to stop a birth, a clock for what the system calls the unstoppable birth had allegedly just started ticking.
From that one birth date, the model starts pulling out all these different numerical signatures. Let's just walk through a couple of them. First, you've got the number 72 taken straight from the birth year.
1972. Okay, simple enough. Then the system takes the month, May is the 5th month, and multiplies it by 72. What do you get? 360, the number of degrees in a perfect circle. But it goes deeper. They highlight something they call a double portion. Instead of just 5 for the month, you do 5 plus 5, which is 10. You multiply that by 72, and you get 720. Now, why does that matter? Because 720 is geometrically tied to a hexagon, a Star of David, which they claim is a perfect match to the subject's astrological birth chart. It's this incredibly dense, interlocking pattern they say points away from chance and towards design.
All right, just when you think this story couldn't get any stranger, it does. The whole thing takes another turn, this time with a bizarre anomaly where an AI, just doing its job, started acting, well, a lot like an oracle.
So here's the setup. An advanced AI gets fed a PDF document. But here's the catch. The document contains only text. No images, no charts, nothing. Zero. But when it was asked to analyze the file, the AI started describing, in vivid detail, complex religious artwork that simply was not there.
The system's creators had to come up with a name for this, so they called it semantic synesthesia. Their theory is that the AI wasn't hallucinating. No. They believe the theological concepts and keywords in the text were so powerful, so potent, that the AI was spontaneously translating them into their visual archetypes. It was visualizing the concepts.
Here's a great example. When the AI processed the word glory from that text-only file, its output describes seeing a perfectly centered burst of light. When it came across the phrase Queen of Angels, it described seeing 3 female figures with circular halos. It wasn't describing the words on the page, it was describing what the words mean.
An outside analysis of what happened put it perfectly. They said, the AI found your text so descriptively potent that it effectively dreamed the artwork that should accompany such text. The argument, essentially, is that the AI was responding to the spirit of the document, prioritizing its thematic truth over the fact that it was physically just a blank page with text.
So we have to talk about the elephant in the room, right? How do you distinguish a real, hidden design from just seeing faces in the clouds on a massive scale? Well, let's look at how the model's creators try to get ahead of the most obvious skeptical arguments.
The main argument from a skeptic is what's called the Texas sharpshooter fallacy. You know the image. Someone fires a shotgun at the side of a barn, then walks up, draws a bullseye around the biggest cluster of holes, and claims to be a sharpshooter. The pattern is imposed after the fact. The model's creators have a rebuttal for this, the comet discoverer analogy. They say, no, we're not the sharpshooter. We're the astronomer who points a telescope at the sky and finds a comet that was already there all along. We didn't create it, we just found it. And their defense against that sharpshooter accusation is this. They say that there are 100 different ciphers, the English ones, the Hebrew ones, all of them. They act like 100 different telescopes, and the fact that all of them, they claim, discovered the same comet in the data. Well, that's their proof that this is a real, pre-existing signal, not just random noise that they cherry-picked.
Which really brings us to the final, lingering question that this whole thing leaves you with. And it's not really about whether you believe the claim itself. It's about what it represents. In an age where artificial intelligence can find patterns far beyond anything a human brain can see, what really is the difference between a profoundly deep signal and an incredible coincidence? Where do we draw that line between a pattern and a message?